Yo, what's going on? You know, I should really start these videos with follow me on Twitch because this is where I'm live streaming this from. Twitch.tv/ Johnny underscore soda. I believe that's my name. Yeah. Forget my own name sometimes. And then I also am on Threads. I believe that is also Johnny underscore soda on Threads. So yeah, if you want to talk about something, either hit me in the comments below or anywhere on there. Feel free to do that. All right, love it. The 24. Get on with it, mate. Alaska Airlines literally falling apart. Like, I don't know what this guy is doing, but
Seattle CEO
whatever.
Ben Minicucci took us on board one of the grounded
Okay, this is not loud enough. Crank that up.
Boeing MAX 9s to see the type of door plug that blew out of an Alaska plane over Portland.
Why did that sound so sexual? Anyway.
So when all these bolts are in, they're against these stops, that door's not going anywhere.
The NTSB now examining whether Boeing or Spirit Aerosystems ever bolted the door plug in place. In an exclusive interview with NBC News, CEO Minicucci.
Brother, I don't know what you're trying to accomplish here with this video, but man, the news is tearing you apart.
She says Alaska technicians have found more loose bolts on grounded planes.
We found, some loose bolts on many of our MAX 9s. So those
Many.
Yeah.
Many.
So those are things that are going to be rectified through the inspection process.
Who's been checking
Flight
this?
1282 was a new Boeing
Dude,
MAX 9.
Imagine being in an airplane with the door missing. Come on.
The door plug covers an unused emergency exit in planes with fewer seats.
It makes you mad. It makes you mad
It makes me mad.
that we're finding issues like that on brand new airplanes.
Thankfully, no one was sitting next to the plug when it
Dude.
exploded.
Imagine.
Looking at that video and those photos, did you think, my God, what if somebody were sitting there?
There were only 7 open seats, and we had a guardian angel, honestly, on that airplane. And I just want to take...
You know, that's going to be a policy from now on. Like, that seat will remain occupied when you go to pick your seats. It will be occupied. Not only that, but the seat next to it. And they're going to try and put some algorithm in there that it only opens up when it's the very last person, and then you're going to die.
a moment here to say how sorry I am for our guests on Flight 1282 for what they experienced. It was just a terrifying flight. And also to thank our crew, the amazing professionalism and skill of our crew.
The MAX 9 is flown by both Alaska and United, which has also found loose bolts around its door plugs. All MAX 9s remain grounded, hundreds of flights canceled, as the FAA reviews data from the first round of inspections. The FAA chief today would not say when the MAX 9 might be cleared to fly.
Well, we're not putting a timeline on it. Our focus is making sure that it's safe.
In a new statement, Boeing today said, "We have let down our airline customers and are deeply sorry for the significant disruption to them, their employees, and their passengers." The close call came 5 years after 2 MAX 8 crashes overseas killed 346 people. Boeing promised it would double
this thing's
down
a
on
death
quality
trap.
control. Now Alaska is sending its own inspectors into Boeing plants to double-check Boeing's work. But Minicucci says Alaska will continue to fly an all-Boeing
sound
fleet.
It makes me angry,
Very
Tom.
reliable. I
Boeing
heard
is
you were
better than
angry the
this.
first time. Minucci?
Flight 1282 should never have happened. Should never have happened.
You know what? I got something for you, Minucci. Hold on. How about one of these? You disrespecting our culture. How would you like it if somebody disrespected your culture?
Italian, I pissed off in the year 2023.
Target found. That dude wanted to fight. He brought his own, like, whatever his... It's gotta be like Parmesan or sugar or something. I don't know. The catcher. What's the matter, you? And then, for anybody who does this, I will unfriend you. You will be dead to me.
Mama dear, come over here and see who's looking in my window.
It's a big ass taco. What are you doing?
It's the baker boy, and look, he's got a cannoli in his hand.
Okay, this one took me a while to figure out, but he broke the noodles in front of him, and then he threw it on the ground.
If you marry the baker boy, he will come and he will go, and he will always make...
Every single Italian.
Anyways, yeah, how would you like if somebody did it to you, huh? Huh? How about one of those? That's my best Italian New York accent, I guess. Yeah, so this
Well,
is
United
death
CEO
trap,
said his
literally.
airline will consider buying from companies beyond Boeing.
That means Airbus, and Airbus is already outselling Boeing. Meanwhile, here in Seattle today, Boeing announced a safety stand-down on Thursday.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like we need another war for Boeing to get some more contracts to build some more airplanes. And then stunk go up. Whatever.
Everybody working on the 737 production line to drill down on quality control and safety as it tries to focus on getting better. Lester.
Thanks for watching.
How'd he move so fast? He's like a freaking vampire. All right, enough of that one. Oh man, that did be a post. Okay. I need to fix my finger on my PFP. All right, Trump promises to what? Yeah, I know he won the New Hampshire thing.
And I will build an iron dome over our country, a state-of-the-art missile defense shield made in the USA. We do it for other countries. We help other countries. We don't do it for ourselves. We need it too.
This dude is so sweaty. Like they cook him like a freaking McDouble, man. Like, what are they doing to him? I think I now believe that it's not the makeup. It's literally the McDonald's lamps that they have on him at the press conferences. He's at so many press conferences that he's just like, his face is just getting cooked. But yeah, he's gonna build an iron dome in our backyard, basically, is his plan. For what? Who is launching missiles? Or do we have Al-Qassam like at the gates? Or is that what the like the cartels and everybody that we don't give any money to?
You know, Reagan proposed that.
They're gonna Reagan proposed an Iron Dome
Many years ago, Star Wars. He proposed it many years ago, but at that time there was no technology.
What did he say?
He proposed it many years ago, but at that time there was no technology. It was just like it looked good. But we have unbelievable technology. We shoot them down. I've seen so many things. I've seen shots that you wouldn't even believe. Missile launch. They go missile launch, and you hear a bell go. I mean, I see this. It's so incredible. And these guys, these geniuses, they go. These are not muscle guys here. They're muscle guys up here.
I don't know what he's talking about.
And they calmly walk to a seat. Ding, 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 ding. They've only got 17 seconds to figure this whole thing out, right? Boom. Okay. Missile launch. Boom. It's the most and we don't have it here. But we help other countries in having it. No, we're going to have the greatest Iron Dome. Let's call it Iron Dome. Anywhere in the world. And it's going to be manufactured. A lot of it
is
right
real.
here in New Hampshire, actually.
Oh.
Come to think of it.
Thanks for watching.
Oh my God, that was not real. Okay, I gotta post that. I gotta get back to that one. Okay, so yeah, Israel proposes a 2-month pause in the fighting.
Well, Israel says its troops have encircled the city of Khan Yunis in
12 hours
southern
ago.
Gaza, which the UN says has been the scene of some of the worst fighting in the conflict with Hamas. It comes after Israel said that Monday was the deadliest day for its troops since the war began.
Why is
NBC News
that?
foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv with the
Man, Raf
latest
gets
here.
around.
Hi, Raf. Thanks for being here. So, the UN issued a new warning about the humanitarian situation in Khan Yunis as well as its hospitals. What is the latest there, and what are we hearing also from Israelis about their deadliest day that I just mentioned?
Okay, I'm going to build this up. I kind of pre-watch. I already know what happened today, obviously. But
So, Savannah, the fighting is raging in Khan Yunis. This is the biggest city in southern Gaza. Hundreds of thousands of people had fled the north, hoping that they would be safe there. And the war has come to them in a big way. And specifically, it is raging in the street.
I mean, why did it come to them? Are you telling me that they already conquered northern Gaza? Because it doesn't sound like they did.
Streets around the Al Nasser hospital, which is the last major hospital still functioning in Gaza. Our team was inside that hospital yesterday. They sent us some truly haunting images, waves of wounded people coming in. One image that will stay with me, a 7-year-old girl's ponytail that had been chopped off by surgeons who were treating her for shrapnel wounds, lying on the floor of the emergency room. Doctors say they are completely overwhelmed. The Israeli military is ordering people to evacuate from the area around the hospital. We've been asking them all morning, are you telling people to get out of the hospital itself? They're not giving a clear answer on that, but as we've seen, evacuating a hospital is a very, very difficult thing to do. You have prematurely born babies in incubators.
Yeah, what happened last time? They left them in the NICU and they were found decomposing.
You have people hooked up to dialysis machines. It is not a straightforward thing to do at the best of times. These are not the best of times. In terms of Israeli losses, the Israeli military says 21 soldiers were killed yesterday in a single incident. They were inside 2 houses fairly close to the border with Israel. They were preparing to plant explosives in those houses to blow them up. And they are saying a Hamas rocket-propelled grenade was fired at them. It appears to have triggered those charges, blowing it up. This is a country really in shock. This morning, we've been hearing from Prime Minister.
I think we're going to find out that, first of all, blowing up housing and destroying buildings and whatnot that nobody's inhabiting is kind of a war crime.
Mr.
Anyway.
Netanyahu, other national leaders about the scale of the loss there. Guys.
Raf, also talk to us about what NBC News is learning about an Israeli proposal. This is for a 2-month pause in fighting in exchange for the release of all hostages. Where is that at? What is the likelihood of that? How is the negotiation happening?
Yeah, so 2 Israeli officials say that they have sent that proposal to Qatar, who will send it on to Hamas. We haven't heard anything from Hamas. We do know that the 2 sides have been very far apart, and they've been far apart for a long time now. Hamas has been saying no hostages will be released until the war ends. Israel saying the war will not end until Hamas is destroyed. And then you have Qatar in the middle trying to bridge the gap here. I can tell you guys, for the families of the hostages.
I mean, okay, in my opinion, they're just saying that so they can continue bombing Palestinians. This has been proposed already.
Their frustration has been mounting with.
It has been mediated already.
The Israeli government. They want the government to.
Previous to what she just spouted off.
Make a deal, and they want them to make it now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated.
Okay, hold on. He said they want a deal and they want to make it now.
Well, Israel.
Their frustration has been mounting with the Israeli government. They want the government to make a deal, and they want them to make it now.
Thanks.
Hold on. Who?
Deal, and they want them to make it now.
Hold on.
Mounting with messages. Their frustration has been mounting with the Israeli government. They want the government.
Okay, I think he's seeing the hostage families, right? Okay. Which they do protest just about every day, to my knowledge. So, yeah, that seems like an issue. Now, they're saying that this was a deal that Hamas rejected. This is not the first time that this has been proposed. This is, 3 weeks ago? Hamas makes a fresh proposal. for a ceasefire. So Israel rejects the proposal, calls it unacceptable. Now this, I don't think this was in the U.S. news, but yeah, they rejected a fresh hostage deal offered by Hamas, as Axios reported, so it was an Axios. If you're going to try and tell me that, oh, this is not a reliable place, okay, so multiple sources were reporting this. Proposal was reported via Qatar and Egyptian mediators. Alright. Discussed the proposal but refused to accept the deal. Got it. Proposal we received from Hamas on Sunday is totally off base. So they don't really say what the proposal. Beginning of pre-talks, no significant. So they said Hamas's new hostage deal, Palestinian militant group, 3-phase process. Each phase would include a pause in fighting for more than a month, okay, for release of hostages. I think I saw a second in there. Yeah, okay. And then they would begin pulling the IDF out of Gaza as the first phase of the deal. Would also end the war following the implementation of the last phase. Okay. Release of soldiers who are being held in Gaza. Alright. So they'll only negotiate the deal if they agree to stop. And that doesn't seem like that's happening. Okay. I think there was another story on this also of them trying to make a deal. I think it might have been yesterday. Hang on. Back-to-back attacks. Hold on, what was that? On the deadliest day. Alright, got it. I don't know. I want to swear that there was... Yeah, here we go. Israel gets a big offer from 5 Arab states on the Palestine amid war. Washington, yeah. Is it Washington Street Journal? Report said that the joint proposal has been submitted via the United States. Basically, they're working on a deal that would offer Israel normalization in exchange for a Palestinian state. So these deals are already in the works. Like, I don't understand why this is news to the U.S. media. Things like this have been going on. This is 16 hours ago. This is yesterday. This might be the deal that they're talking about, but it seems like it's not. It really seems like they've rejected this deal already, and maybe what they're talking about right now is a counter deal. So who knows? We're not there. We don't know exactly what's going on. Hopefully something happens soon for a ceasefire and for this all to end, because this is totally tragic. Anyways, speaking of tragedies, here's they spoke about what's going on in Khan Yunis. This was a few days ago, actually, that this was posted. I want to see, this was from last week. But yeah, he goes on. So he's giving us a little biblical history, I guess. Talking about the plagues of war that they're going to unleash on Gaza, basically. Yeah, there's some pretty yeah, I don't know, some odd replies in here. Yeah, it seems like his goal, or the goal that was here for them to go into Khan Yunis, and I read this somewhere else, that they said that some of the most fiercest fighters are actually in Khan Yunis, as far as the IQB goes. So they are there with a purpose. They're there with a purpose, which is why they have left northern Gaza without completely conquering it. As we all know, they're still getting destroyed, and several several soldiers are still dying in northern Gaza. and there's a lot of vehicles lost. There's a lot of lives that are being lost. And then, so they've been in Khan Yunis, and they've been doing demolitions in Khan Yunis. Now, what is the risk of doing demolitions? Let's go ahead and check this out. This is more
Israel
recent.
has announced it is launching an investigation into yesterday's attack that killed more than 20 of its troops in Gaza.
They're calling it an attack. I got it.
It's the deadliest single assault on Israeli soldiers in the war with Hamas. Meanwhile, the Palestine Red Crescent Society says Gazans are fleeing refugee camps on hospital grounds in Khan Yunis.
So here's Gaza City. Here's where the fighting should be going on. My understanding is this area here is pretty well entrenched with IQB fighters. And then that they've kind of cut across here. The IDF has kind of cut across here and cut this off. Now, of course, there's tunnels that go all under this whole section, whole areas that nobody really knows what they look like, what they're mapped out to be. They are definitely waiting for them in the tunnels. There are thousands of people, apparently. That's where the hostages are being kept, to my knowledge. But yeah, going down and starting to destroy Khan Yunis, being the second most metro-looking area to me, or at least heavily populated area, seems like a very a dubious thing to do. Destroying buildings, going through and doing demolitions, seems like something that you wouldn't
Israel
believe
ramps up its
that an army would do unless they're actually fighting people.
assault around the southern Gaza city. For more, let's bring in Mark Lowen. He's a correspondent with our partners at the BBC. Mark, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's late there. What can you tell us about what is happening in Khan Yunis?
Lilia, well, Khan Yunis is the biggest city in southern Gaza, and it is increasingly in the grip of the Israeli defense forces that have, in effect, encircled the city. They've cut off the last road out of it for those who are trying to flee to the very south of Gaza, to Rafah. It is still believed that possibly a few 100,000 people remain inside Khan Yunis, but that is also where the Israeli defense forces believe that top Hamas commanders are holed up either in that city or in tunnels beneath it. Now, as you mentioned there, reports about fighting around medical facilities as well. There are reports from health officials in Gaza that at least one hospital has been stormed by Israeli soldiers, arresting the medical staff inside.
I mean, at least one. That's like the most recent one. I believe there's no operating hospitals in the Gaza Strip now.
And that others have been blockaded as well. And the fighting is so intense that that bodies are having to be buried in the grounds of the biggest hospital there, Nasser, because they can't get to the cemetery. So that is the focus of the intense fighting there. And the Israelis believe that if they can cut off Khan Yunis and if they can strike into the heart there, they could be getting close to those top Hamas commanders that have so far.
Brother, they haven't even conquered Gaza City in the north. What do you mean? Like they're not doing. The only thing they're doing is destruction and demolition. That's it.
Evaded Israel's grasp.
Now, Mark, let's turn to the investigation into that explosion that killed nearly 24 soldiers.
Yeah,
What's
who did
the
it?
latest
Gee,
coming
where
out
they
of
get
the
all those
Israeli
explosives
government?
from?
What are they looking for?
Well, the first burials have taken place for the 24 soldiers who were killed yesterday. 21 in one attack and 3 in another. The 21 who were killed, which represents the biggest single loss of life for the Israeli army since the ground invasion began. They were next to 2 buildings which they themselves had mined, ready for demolition. And then we understand from the Israeli Defense Forces that they were fired at by a rocket-propelled grenade, which precipitated the detonation of the mines and the loss of life. The Israeli government says that an investigation is underway, but of course it's adding to the national trauma and heartbreak in this country, already traumatized by the 7th of October attacks, the worst in Israel's history. President Isaac Herzog of Israel has called it an unbearably difficult day.
Absolutely no mention of the death count in Gaza going over 25,000. Nothing. Zero. A very one-sided affair here. We speak of these soldiers. The title is going with Israel. everything is a one-sided affair here. I would say this is completely biased media. Let's see what ABC
Meantime,
News has to say.
tonight, and we turn to the deadliest day for Israeli troops since the war with Hamas began.
It's the deadliest day, so yeah,
24
same
Israeli
approach.
soldiers killed.
Very much the
Back
same
up
approach.
in Israel tonight.
Israel reeling tonight after losing 21 soldiers in that attack in the Gaza Strip. According to the IDF, a unit of reserve soldiers was preparing to demolish a pair of two-story buildings in Gaza Monday in the buffer
And they never say why.
zone Israel's carving out near its border. Hamas video showing the moment its fighters fired.
Okay, they're trying to carve out an area near the border, closer to the Iron Wall.
An anti-tank missile that would trigger a chain reaction and then a massive explosion. Israel's chief of staff at the scene today announcing an investigation has begun with 24 soldiers killed yesterday. It was the deadliest day for Israel since the war began.
Said that.
It comes as Israel lays siege to Gaza's second largest city. Bombs exploding over the skyline and bullets piercing the area's largest hospital. Inside the hospital, this boy's
That's a
sister
hospital.
killed.
Why are you shooting at it? Hold on. What? Hold the hell on. What did you just say?
And bullets piercing the area's largest hospital. Inside the hospital, this boy's sister killed. He screams, "Don't tell me my sister is dead. I want to play with her." The streets filled with the echoes of machine guns. Families
What
now
are we
fleeing,
reporting
some
here?
running hand in hand, bundles under their arms, cars piled high with bedding, others moving on donkey carts.
And with hunger now soaring in Gaza, Qatar
You're a bad
mediators
person,
are
man.
saying
You're a bad
that
person.
worsening humanitarian conditions in Gaza are now complicating efforts to negotiate a ceasefire and hostage release. David,
back up and
Oh,
live.
I'm sorry, what?
Complicating efforts to negotiate a ceasefire. Are saying that worsening humanitarian conditions in Gaza are now complicating efforts to negotiate a
Please stop dying. You're making the efforts worse.
ceasefire and hostage release. David,
back up
What
and live.
logic
and
are
television
y'all?
again tonight.
How do y'all
Matt,
say
thank
this
you.
with a straight face?
Hi, everyone.
Anyways, so yeah, what did that look like? Gee, I wonder. That's several explosions there. So, yeah, you can see here, like on the right side, those explosions kind of pop off right away, right? Pretty weird for these explosions to be huge and gigantic like that. I'm gonna get to that. I want to see what
Tonight,
these doofuses said over here.
Military funerals after Israeli forces suffered their bloodiest day yet in Gaza. 24 soldiers killed on Monday, 21 of them in a single.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, and then I think they just kind of like glance over it. They don't really say much.
Ambush with rocket-propelled grenades.
An
like those
ambush.
shown in
It was
this
an
Hamas
ambush.
Video, which Israel says triggered explosives the troops were using to rig a building for demolition.
They were just trying to destroy a building, guys. They wanted to completely destroy these buildings that we haven't said what they are, why they were trying to destroy them, or anything, any details about that. It's all about, oh yeah, they were just, you know, small being trying to set up some explosives, and then they got blown up, and then that blew everything else up.
Meanwhile, new accounts of the horrors faced by hostages.
Yeah, so very ridiculous reporting. These guys are just disingenuous. It's not good reporting that's happening right now.
Breaking news overnight in the Israel-Hamas war.
Oh, this is the same guy reporting the same junk. All right, got it. All right, so what can we piece together as far as what happened? So, according to the Wall Street Journal, the IDF said at least 24 soldiers were killed when two buildings rigged for demolition in Gaza collapsed. After that, so I went through and they said supposedly it was an RPG. Actually, I've heard stories that it was a shell that they were doing. IQB was doing shellings. They hit a tank, and then they said a blast from an RPG likely caused the explosives to detonate. So, yeah. So how RPG hit on tank and building that stored mines. They had a building where they were storing the mines. What does that look like? These are mines that they're storing in buildings. Basically, they've been piling these up all around Khan Yunis in buildings as to buildings that they want to destroy. Now, what might that look like? Let's see. I think I replied to somebody down here as far as what those look like. Oh man, I gotta log in. Hold on, let me log in real quick. Continue. Better take me back. No, it didn't take me back to that page. Alright. So, this is what it looks like when they destroy a building. This is the questionable destruction of the university of Israel. And they'll always use the excuse that it's been
the video
that it's been
a little
occupied.
hesitant, I think, for reasons that should be understandable to pass definitive judgment on it from this podium.
What we've also seen is videos like this. We lost last time. That's concerning. That sounds like they're saying there's no innocent people in Gaza. So that's from last month. Yeah, this is what it looks like currently in Gaza. And then they destroy the houses that were already pretty much dilapidated. So, now what might trigger that? Probably something like this, right? You know, if you disturb some mines, you're probably going to end up with a very large explosion that would probably result in this. That would probably destroy the entire area. Now, what I did come across is this message here. I don't know how true this is, but every story that we've heard so far is that that there was either an RPG or there was something that was launched at a tank, and then that tank exploded or did something and blew up whatever demolitions that they had near them. Here in this message, I don't know exactly who these people are. I'm not going to dig any further. But they said a tank was targeted with a shell, then another tank bombed a house. So it sounds to me like one tank gets hit, another tank turns around or retaliates and hits the house that is probably loaded with these mines. They said 12 houses were booby-trapped. So they hit a house where the soldiers were booby-trapping the houses, and all the houses exploded. The event took place in El Maghazi. Sounds pretty accurate. Apparently this came out earlier. Yeah, this was yesterday at 9 p.m. So this messaging getting out like this, previous to any of the news reports, I don't know if I can believe this or not, but it sounded like they had a lot of houses lined up to be bombed, and it's not something that we haven't seen them do previously, especially if you look at this video here where it looks like they have all of these houses lined up to be bombed, to be demolished. Yeah, and they just kind of blow them all up. Definitely sounds like the MO. you know, what happens when you accidentally shoot your own, when you shoot a tank shell at a house that is full of mines. I imagine you're going to end up with the problem of, you know, maybe the entire block going off, like you would see here. So that's just what I've put together. How much truth there is to all of that, I can't confirm. I don't follow a lot of these accounts, but you know, here's this guy saying, why? Because the IDF cares about Gaza civilians so much, instead of bombing from the air, which they always do, and the 25,000 people have died. Instead of risking their lives, they went and they risked their own children. These are grown-ass men. They were all in their 20s, late 20s, I believe. The majority of them were, if not in their 30s. Sounds like a fairly experienced group, unless they were, I think they said they were reservists as well. So if they were reservists, maybe they're not so experienced, or they haven't been in the game for a while. The commanders! Oh no, I need to stop looking over here. Okay, sorry. But yeah, you know, you try to be moral and you try to say that this is a moral issue. No, we've seen what's going on here. This is obviously just you're running positive PR, and it's I don't know who it's working on, but yeah, that's some tragic stuff, for sure. I don't want to be some sort of conspiracy theorist and say this is all the mainstream media is just lying to us, man, and all that. But you eventually you got to kind of put your foot down on these things, because the reporting that is going on in the background or on the ground, as much as they're trying to censor that, there has been a several-day communications block. I think it's going on a week now, of information not coming out of Gaza. We're seeing reporters like Motaz, and I believe there was another reporter that have left the area, or maybe she sent her children away from the area, from Gaza. And so it's becoming a huge issue as to what the conditions are that are there. As you saw in one of the reports, they're like, please stop dying because you're making it a problem. Whatever the logic is there. All right, so what else is going on in the area over there? So U.S., this is 6 hours ago today. U.S. launches airstrikes against militias
news right now
in
out
Iraq.
of the Middle East. The U.S. has launched airstrikes against Iran-backed militants in Iraq, and this is happening in response to an attack over the weekend. 17 ballistic missiles and rockets launched from inside western Iraq, targeting
Al-Assad again.
Al-Assad Air Base. So several American personnel were evaluated for possible traumatic brain injuries following that attack. I want to bring in ABC News senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez for more on this. Louis, thank you for being here with us. First of all, I mean, what do we know?
This is the most frog-looking person I've ever seen in my life.
At this hour about these U.S. retaliatory strikes against these Iran-backed militias in Iraq.
Kano, what we know is that shortly after midnight local time in Iraq, the United States aircraft conducted retaliatory airstrikes against 3 facilities associated with an Iranian-backed militia that is believed to be responsible for this attack against Al-Assad Air Base over the weekend, as well as multiple others, now totaling more than 150 both in Iraq and Syria. The United States says, Central Command tells us that the 3 facilities housed storage units, was a command headquarters, and was also a training area for the missiles, rockets, and drones that are being used in these attacks against U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria. The United States saying that they hope that this will stop these attacks from these militias, which are backed by Iran and are using Iranian-made weapons. But of course, as we're seeing...
Okay, so I can tell you when these attacks have stopped. It's when the 5-day ceasefire happened over here. When the 5-day ceasefire happened, not only did these attacks cease as well, but also down south where the Red Sea and Yemen is, that stopped also. So if you want these attacks to stop, we already know what the situation is.
With the Houthis, one thing is saying that they are trying to degrade their capabilities. The other is whether those groups actually will follow heed to those warnings and these attacks.
They've already said they won't.
And Louis, as you have pointed out here, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin saying we don't seek to escalate the conflict in the region, but we're fully prepared to take further measures. Louis Martin.
This is where my money's going, man. Come on. You guys are just the most disingenuous people.
Inez, thank you so much.
Get out of here, John Snuffleupagus. All right, what else happened in the area?
Turning back now to the escalating situation in the Middle East. U.S. officials say the latest American and British airstrikes on Houthi rebels in Yemen degraded their ability to attack merchant ships. Our Charlie D'Agata is watching the U.S. response.
Overnight, in the latest round of large-scale U.S.-led assaults, U.S. Central Command released new video showing F-18 fighter jets taking off from the deck of the USS Eisenhower. It's the second time U.S. and...
Man, these things are going to start getting shot down, and then we're going to be really pissed.
British aircraft and warships have conducted a joint bombing operation by air and sea. Britain's Typhoons out of Cyprus, loaded with what the Ministry of Defense called precision-guided bombs. U.S. military officials said up to 30 munitions hit multiple targets at 8 Houthi locations, including an underground weapons storage site launched from submarines, warships, and fighter jets.
And we're not at war here? This is not a war. Okay.
The retaliation came as the U.S. military announced the deaths of 2 Navy SEALs lost at sea after a commando raid on a Houthi-bound ship.
We're doing a lot to not be at war.
Identifying them as 37-year-old Christopher J. Chambers from Maryland.
Look at all these awards. Hold on.
And 27-year-old Nathan
These guys are decorated.
Ingram from Texas. Ingram reportedly slipped while climbing the ladder onto the boat and went under.
Which boat? Repeat that.
And 27-year-old Nathan Gage Ingram from Texas. Ingram reportedly slipped while climbing the ladder onto the boat and went under. Following SEAL protocol, Chambers jumped in and tried to rescue him. The incident is under investigation. President...
You know, it's been about a week and a half now. First, I want to know, how do we know that he slipped? Was there another witness there witnessing him slip other than the guy that dove into the water? Did he say, hey, he slipped, I'm diving into the water? Like, what sense does this all make? It doesn't really line up properly. Also, there was another report saying that it happened when they were approaching the boat. So, which one is it? Is it this one or the other report?
And Joe Biden said in his statement that Jill and I are mourning the tragic deaths of 2 of America's finest. The SEALs represent the very best of our country, pledging their lives to protect.
Yeah, and also they're SEALs. You fell into the water and you're telling me that a Navy SEAL just drowned? Both of them did? We expect to believe that on one hand they're the best trained, most well equipped of our U.S. Navy fighters, but then on the other hand they can't swim.
Their fellow Americans. Anne-Marie?
That is very true. Well, you know, Charlie, in the midst of what has been sort of daily dire news coming from the region, it's good to hear something about a possible ceasefire. But it seems like, you know, the details are still being negotiated. What can you tell us about what both sides, if both sides, are offering?
Yeah, so Anne-Marie, we're getting conflicting reports this morning. It started overnight. Local media is reporting, a wire agency, that the Israelis had actually come forward with a plan with the Egyptians and the Qataris that would see a 2-month ceasefire. That'd be the longest that we've seen since, obviously. But in return for all of the hostages, Hamas is demanding that all of the Hamas hostages are released from Israeli prisons. Now, we can't verify that ourselves. We spoke to our contacts in Qatar who said these media reports really are inaccurate. However, at the same time, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking to families of the hostages, and he said there is something underway, but we can't share the details with you now. So it seems, we have a U.S. Representative Brett McGurk is in the region. He's been trying to work some sort of diplomacy, so we may see some movement in the next few days. But I think that 2-month plan is a bit more ambitious than anybody here would expect.
Now I want to talk about the targeting those Houthi targets in Yemen. So certainly it appears as if the Houthi capabilities are increasingly being diminished, but certainly not their will. It doesn't seem to be slowing them down or stopping them from continuing these attacks on ships in the region. So then my question is, and you were on the USS Bataan, is the U.S., do they appear as if that they are ready should this conflict, spread beyond the way it's been contained right now? And I should say, though we've just talked about, a Navy SEALs dying, we haven't actually had, American military die as a result of any of these attacks. But when you got missiles going back and forth, you just never know.
Yes, when we spoke to...
Hold on, let me butt in here. If they wanted to sink U.S. Navy ships by now, they would have done it. They have the arsenal to do that, even with the attacks that have been going on. That could easily happen. They can easily overwhelm a system with the amount of missiles and capabilities that they have right now. If you don't believe me, just look it up yourself. What is the arsenal of the Houthi or Ansar Allah? What are their capabilities? They could easily be shooting these military planes out of the sky. That could happen very simply. Now you're telling me that I want you to believe that they're holding some sort of restraint. I would say yeah. They've made their demand clear, and it's a ceasefire in Gaza.
Marine Colonel, he said this is very real. A Navy captain actually, who said.
And also the other thing that they're trying to accomplish is to make the U.S. military look like the bad guy. Now the U.S. military is currently bombing the shit out of them, and they've already been bombed for 9 years plus. That's been going on. It's nothing new to them. So to continue doing something that's already been happening for this long, not a big deal, but I mean, as big of a deal as it is, it's not necessarily the biggest deal. Also, they're going to continue doing what they want to do, which is going to be to cause a sort of blockade in the Red Sea.
This is very real. What's happening in the Red Sea? The United States and its allies, but mostly the United States, has been engaged with these Houthi rebels, directly engaged, taking out targets in Yemen. Now, what we saw in the Mediterranean is sort of twofold. On the USS Bataan, we were with U.S. Marines who are here really just for the what if. They're a fighting force.
It wasn't even either in the sea or in the Gulf.
2,000 across the deployment, and they specialize in landing crafts. So to get into a place, get themselves into a place, or get anybody else out of a place. So when you look at what's happening, obviously in Gaza, or if it were to heat up between Hezbollah in Lebanon and Israel, that would take this to the next level, which is why the Marines are here. We have thousands of Americans in Lebanon. We have obviously tens of thousands of Americans here in Tel Aviv. So it's just a sort of comfort blanket, as it was described to us, among U.S. allies here. So in one situation in the Red Sea, this is already a hot war. Yes, what we saw last night was big, as we saw like 10 days ago.
I'm sorry,
But
repeat that one more
every
time.
sort of comfort blanket, as it was described to us among U.S. allies here. So, in one situation in the Red Sea, this is already a hot war. Yes, what we saw last night was big as we saw like 10 days ago. But every single day, the Americans, in one way or another, have been trying to degrade Houthi capabilities, but you can see the Houthis have still been able to attack. They have been able to degrade their air capabilities and surveillance.
They want to make it seem like the Houthi have like 10 missile silos. They don't. There's a lot more arsenal than that.
Well, I guess we need to see what happens after last night's attacks and what impact they're going to have on Houthi capabilities.
Yeah. Charlie, thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, that's what's going on over there. Anyway, switching to the most devious of licks. Sean from Sean Vids, which is also, I believe, just Sean on Twitch. IDF soldier who repeatedly feigns injury to trick the sperm squad into doing that. Yeah, I think I went over that earlier. But yeah, that would be one of the most devious licks, just to go back to it. Wow, trickery. Anyway, so this is what's... I'm just gonna say, I don't think any of these guys are in Yunis right now. I believe this is an older video. This is a newer video. No! They just kind of do that? Yes, they do. This is like really loud, isn't it? That's scary. That's just like blowing your eardrums out. My bad. I don't know what to make of this. I don't know. What was it? There was a report that I saw. IDF have the hottest females. Beautiful women of the IDF. I mean, that's... Yeah, this is like a whole thing, right? Is serving in the IDF sexy? Yeah, 55% of Israelis say that it is. I mean, if that's what you got going on there, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. Like, you ever go on a date with somebody and then like they like a taco vertically or something, just like did something really weird and you're like, gotta go. That just that seems like that's what that is. I don't know. I don't know how you get around that. All right, well, what else happened today?
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's reportedly proposed halting its assault on Gaza for 2 months in exchange for the release of more than 100 hostages remaining in Gaza. According to Axios, the proposed deal would also involve the release of Palestinians imprisoned by Israel, but it would not end the war in Gaza. Axios reports Israel's given the proposal to Hamas through mediators from Qatar and Egypt. Separately, CNN reports Israel proposed allowing top Hamas officials to leave Gaza as part of a broader ceasefire negotiation. President Biden's Middle East coordinator, Brett McGurk, is in Egypt and will soon head to Qatar. This comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces increasing political pressure to bring home the hostages. Earlier today, Israel announced 24 of its soldiers were killed in Gaza on Monday.
And there are the protests in Tel Aviv that nobody is covering in the U.S., by the way.
The deadliest day for Israeli forces since Hamas attacked Israel.
Even though just about all of these reporters that we just saw are currently in Tel Aviv, is where they are stationed. I'm not going to say based. They're not there permanently. They're stationed in Tel Aviv. They are not covering any of this. There is none of this on any of the ABC, NBC, CBS channels.
Israel on October 7th, bringing the number of Israeli soldier casualties to over 200. Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to worsen. The United Nations is warning 570,000 Palestinians face catastrophic hunger. Health officials in Gaza say 195 Palestinians were killed in Israeli strikes over the past 24 hours. Israeli forces have reportedly surrounded the city of Khan Yunis while attacking areas where thousands of Palestinians have sought shelter, including at Al-Aqsa University. This is a Palestinian child who fled the school with his family.
We hardly made it out of the university under the shelling. We didn't expect the tanks at the university's gates. We hardly made it out. Every day I see children die. Every day children die. Many of my friends died last night at Al-Aqsa University.
According to the Gaza Health Ministry, over 25,000 Palestinians have died in Gaza, more than 10,000 of them children. In other news from the region, the 18-year-old Israeli war resistor Tal Mitnick has been sentenced to an additional 30 days in military prison. Visit democracynow.org to see our
They gave him an additional 30 days for talking to Democracy Now!, basically.
Interview with Mitnick last week. He's the first Israeli resistor in the Gaza assault. The U.S. and U.K. launched fresh strikes on 8 Houthi targets in Yemen Monday. It's the second time the two countries conducted a joint attack, and the 8th strike by U.S. forces against the Iran-backed Houthi movement in Yemen over the past 2 weeks in retaliation for Houthi forces targeting ships in the Gulf of Aden and Red Sea to protest Israel's war on Gaza. Massive protests have filled the streets of Yemen since the foreign attack started and after the U.S. recently redesignated the Houthi movement as a terrorist group. This is journalist and activist Isa Asayani.
We say to the United States that this classification will not cause the Yemeni people any fears regarding their support of Gaza. This classification is an evasion and cover-up by the United States and Israel for the crimes they committed against the Palestinian people.
Here in the United States, the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, has become the largest U.S. union to call for an immediate Gaza ceasefire. Union President Mary Kay Henry said, quote, SEIU's almost 2 million members believe that wherever violence, fear, and hatred thrive, working people cannot, she said. Adding Israel must also, quote, end decades of occupation, blockades, and lack of freedom endured by the Palestinian people. The U.S. Supreme Court has declined to hear a case brought against the organization U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. The decision upholds lower court rulings that rejected baseless claims the Palestinian advocacy group provides material support for terrorism. The Center for Constitutional Rights, which represents the group, welcomed the Supreme Court move and said, quote, as the government of Israel is carrying out an unfolding genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, it's more important than ever that activists be free to speak out without fear, CCR said. In more Supreme Court news, justices agreed Monday to hear an appeal from Oklahoma death row prisoner Richard Glossip. He's maintained his innocence for over a quarter of a century after being convicted as the mastermind behind the 1997 murder for hire of his former employer, the owner of a motel Glossip managed. He's narrowly escaped execution 3 times. Oklahoma's Republican Attorney General, Gentner Drummond, has said Glossip's conviction should be vacated due to an unfair trial. In immigration news, the Supreme Court sided with the Biden administration, allowing Border Patrol agents to cut down razor wire put up by Texas troopers along its border with Mexico. Texas Governor Greg Abbott had previously ignored the orders to remove the wire, asserting state authority over the border area. New Hampshire voters are casting ballots today.
That's a literal civil war that we're doing right there.
In the first primary of the 2024 presidential election. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley appeared at a flurry of campaign events Monday in what analysts say could be a final attempt to shore up her campaign against frontrunner Donald Trump. On the Democratic side, President Biden will not be on the primary ballot after state Democrats went ahead with January primaries despite the DNC switching up the voting calendar to prevent Iowa and New Hampshire, for two of the whitest states in the country, from being the first to hold their primaries and caucuses. A write-in campaign for Biden still seeks to deliver the president a victory in New Hampshire. Meanwhile, organizers are urging Democrats to instead write in their vote as ceasefire to send a message to Biden over support for Israel's assault on Gaza. One presidential candidate who is on New Hampshire's Democratic ticket is author and activist Marianne Williamson. She'll be joining us to discuss her campaign later in the broadcast. The Biden administration announced new measures to strengthen access to reproductive care on the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade Monday. These include making contraception more accessible and free under the Affordable Care Act and ensuring hospitals provide emergency abortions nationwide. Both President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris gave addresses Monday excoriating Republicans for their continued attack on abortion rights as Democrats seek to harness persistent voter rage over the Supreme Court's undoing of Roe v. Wade in 2022. This is Vice President Harris speaking from the battleground state of Wisconsin as she kicked off a national tour on abortion rights.
In the last 19 months, in states across our nation, extremists have proposed and passed laws that criminalize doctors and punish women. Today in America, 1 in 3 women of reproductive age live in a state with an abortion ban. 1 in 3.
In France.
Why don't they just codify Roe v. Wade instead? Instead of dangling the carrot, just codify it.
Tens of thousands of people took to the streets in cities across the country on Sunday, urging President Emmanuel Macron to reject a hardline immigration bill. The measure strengthens deportation authority, makes it more difficult for non-citizens to access social welfare and other benefits. The legislation's been widely condemned as anti-immigrant amidst fears of a turn to the far right. This is a migrant worker from Mali at the rally in Paris.
Myself, for example, I work. I don't have social security or anything at all, even though I pay taxes. This is really difficult. When we work, we can be maltreated because we're afraid to lose the jobs that we have. And then when we work, the overtime hours that we do can go unpaid.
What?
And we can't complain. You complain, you get fired.
Man, that sounds
in
very
Illinois,
familiar.
at least 8 people were found fatally shot at 3 separate locations in the city of Joliet Sunday and Monday.
I'm sorry,
the
what?
suspected gunman fled to Texas, where police said he shot himself after a confrontation with law enforcement Monday evening. One of the victims was a 28-year-old Nigerian immigrant who'd been living in the U.S. for about 3 years. There's been at least 24 mass shootings in the U.S. just in the first 3 weeks of this year, according to the Gun Violence Archive. Dexter Scott King, the youngest son of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King, has died of prostate cancer at 62. He served as chair of the King Center, where he dedicated his life's work to preserving and sharing the legacy of his parents.
You know, one thing I didn't know is that his father only lived to the age of 39.
Parents, inspiring young people to continue working toward justice
For some reason.
and equality. And in
Pretty young.
California, faculty at Cal State University, the country's largest public university system, are returning to the classroom today as they reach a tentative agreement late Monday after just a one-day strike. The deal grants pay raises and extended parental leave, among other things. The California Faculty Association Union celebrated the deal, posting on social media, quote, "In case anyone forgot, strikes work." And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now! Co-host Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
I mean, welcome by. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, so that was the news for today. I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to watch anything else. It's kind of late, and it's a weekday, so I think I'm going to call it there. Yeah. Crazy news cycle there. All right. Yeah, we're gonna do that. I'm gonna go post this Trump Iron Dome video. See what people want to say about that. That's kind of funny. But all right, laters.